you go.
I understand.
Yeah, but how do I connect this?
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Go to the email and.
Okay. You went to what?
Yeah.
It's written on. Where were you yesterday? You were on TV yesterday. I had my. I'm thinking you're on spring break like the rest of them. I had my. No.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Man, I saw you on there this morning. You didn't see it.
I have a situation.
You look so pretty and springy. I know. When I was just telling Sandy, I'm so cold in here. Great, how are you? Good, my sister, your wife. Appreciate it very much. Yeah.
Everything. Like, yeah. It just. I miss the squishy stuff and the.
So many eggs, so after this, walk out.
Hello, can anybody hear me there in the room? I don't know if the meeting has started, but it's very difficult to hear voices. Is the microphone loud? All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, guys, don't. Okay. Hey, thank you for coming. I know it's a little bit crowded and also it's real, so you'll show up in about 10 minutes. For this thing and the spring break week. So we're going to talk about don't be that agent. I was that agent of don't be that agent. If you look at the audio text that I sent when I inquired about showing the property, read the top blue box.
I can't do this. Let me stop. Well, the agent's name is Butch and Siri picked up, it says, I have an itch. Hey, if you're listening, it's 5 to Jonesboro Road, Forest Park is still available. And the guy said for sale only. He didn't say bitch, but they did. So sorry, I meant Butch. Dang auto text, always check.
Yes, I was literally. Walking out of the house, and trying to figure out what the dog was at the same time, and that's what came out. Didn't even think about it. Fortunately, the guy doesn't care. As Kratos said to me, no one commercial really cares. It's probably not the first time they've ever been. So they just want to get the deal done. So I appreciate you all coming. There is food outside, so if you want to get up during this and go get food, I'm going to let O'Kelley Sorohan come up here. They were nice enough to sponsor.
Absolutely, you're so welcome. Quick, short and sweet. I'm Ashley Connor with O'Kelley Sorohan. For those who don't know me, these guys up here are incredible. I've worked with them. They do such a great job. They're going to have a lot of really amazing information for you guys, but as always, we're right across the hall. Happy to help with anything you need. Text me, call me, email me, visit me, and of course, enjoy the pizza in the class. Thank y'all. And they are the best.
Thank you. Yeah, they're all.
Yeah, they are.
We're in the middle on our residential side on a estate deal, we're just talking about, and then actually, I got absolutely connected to the son of the person who was deceased, and the whole thing is going very smoothly, and we're closing actually next week.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is that the deceased person had a will, that made it a lot easier.
Well, and your client actually got it probated and followed through and had documents, documents when we needed them, so that makes all the difference.
Definitely.
Must be nice.
Yeah,
I'm in the thick of the stage.
oh, yeah. Yeah.
Meaning,
I think great being able to say, okay, here's the steps that you need to be able to do. And also in IRS issues, that happened 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That we did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we were talking with the Justice Department, I mean, hard money lenders were involved, I mean, it was very, yeah. Yeah, it's IRS, Justice Department, and a hard money lender, so. Okay. So what this class is, probably have to pay $25. This class is not meant to sound like a bitch session, okay? What this class is meant to do is to give you, from our experience up here, where we've done probably cumulatively easily over 1,000 transactions. We have pretty much run into every kind of agent that there is so far. Every transaction is its own storybook, and you learn things and stuff. But the thing is that you want to be known. If real estate is a very small world. There may be 30,000 agents in the metro Atlanta area, but you'd be amazed at how many people know who you are, out there. And you don't want to get that reputation of like, oh my God, he never calls back. One of the biggest challenges in the commercial side of the business is brokers calling you back. They're horrible about it. Residential, we do move a bit faster on that side. But what we want to do is give you some tidbits of what we've come across and how to plant that in your head, not to be that guy. So what we're going to do is we're going to break it down into the different parts of the transaction. First, we're going to talk about even talking to your client, let's say a listing client or a buyer client. How to work with, how things not to do in terms of being able to work with them. Then we're going to talk about contracts, or showing, and then going into contracts, and then went from contract to close, which is where the meat of this conversation is going to be, is from that negotiation to the closing, because that's when you interact with the other agent, the most in doing that. So tell me some stories on things that you've seen, that you've worked with clients, or if you've had, well, I guess the best way to do it, if you've had buyer clients or buyer agents come to you about wanting to go look at property and stuff like that, and trying to talk to them. Things that you've seen where it's been challenging even to give permission, like showing up 5 minutes beforehand, without planning, things of that nature.
Well, yeah, I think one for me was, you call, you schedule, you go through showing time, you schedule the appointment, you go, you're there with your client. The absolute worst situation that we ever kind of walked into was, we go, the upstairs, we ring, we go in. As I'm taking my clients down to the basement to see the basement, we hear voices, we hear a lot of noises. Knock, 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 knock. Well, it turns out they had renters in the basement. They had not told the renters that the house was even on the market. There was no sign or anything. As this is happening, the homeowner comes home at that time. And so we're kind of on the stairs, the homeowner's up here, the renters are down here. We're like, how do I safely get, I mean, it was like sparks, fire was flying, and how do you, kind of safely get your clients out of that? So somehow we navigated our way out. But I think as an agent, make sure that if you're listing a property, that the people that live in it know what's going on. That would be key. Don't set up appointments and let people go if people are going to be there that don't know that you're selling the house. I mean, there are a lot of nightmare sort of stories that you run into in that, with that situation, but that was the worst that I've ever been in.
Yeah, you wanna make sure that you have very clear delineated rules on showings, with your client. When, last week we was a property, I made it very clear to you, it's like, for us, even if a property is vacant, we have everything come into us and we ask for permission to be able to go show, to do that. So the homeowner, whether they live there or not, they always know when someone's coming in, into the property. I can remember, I was about 3 months into showing and I showed a property, and this is something else to learn, is even if you think no one's there, when you knock the door, open it, yell hello.
Yes.
If it's a occupied house, because 3 months into it, I didn't do that, not knowing any better. I would walk upstairs and I'll walk in on a 65-year-old woman taking a shower.
Oh.
Yeah, that was 3 months. ago.
Shocking for everyone.
So you just yell, you'll be
Always,
amazed
and
what-
if you think you hear something, and that's another one that I walked in on, a young man taking a shower, I did that therapy, for me, that was okay, but. So, no,
That was the attitude.
yes, but seriously, if you think you hear something, even though you're supposed to be there and you have the appointment and you walk in, all of a sudden I started hearing what sounded like a shower. And so the closer I got, the more I just kept kind of yelling. And I think he was as surprised as I was
Yeah.
and my clients. But yeah, just always be on the lookout. And here's one more. If you are out previewing property, or if you have a client with you and say there's a kid and they need to go to the bathroom, the house is vacant, whatever it is, check the water before anybody does.
Oh, yeah.
Always check the water before you tell somebody they can use the bathroom.
And keep in your car a roll of toilet paper.
Always.
Always have that.
Because always have some light bags, because you might be fishing toilet paper and throw a rubber bag out the.
Well, this is really turned plastic. Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had to pull that roll of toilet paper out.
But seriously, I mean, if you're out reviewing or you're with a buyer, just check the water. That's an important one.
Yeah.
It may not be classy, but it's important.
I feel so much better about just doing commercial.
Fishing too.
You just go in.
Well.
I've got two things. If you're going to do a vacant property, even if it's vacant, I still tell you to schedule through showing time or the agent know. Because I've had listings where I get a notification in the email saying someone said need the property, and I don't know if this guy.
Yeah,
Exactly. You call them and you're like, you just show my property, like, yeah, I'm like, you can schedule a showing. And so it's just nice to be able to keep track of who's going through the house. If something happens in the house,
Yeah.
these 3 people went through, so that's kind of a courtesy thing, when we schedule a showing, call the agent.
Yeah.
And something that happened to me recently. It's not like I'm bitching, but I scheduled a showing for house in Swanee. I show up with the buyers. The top lock, the key went for it. The bottom lock was locked. There was no key for it. So I called the agent. She sent me the voicemail. I text her, hey, I can't get in the house. And she's like, oh boy. I'm like, what? She's like, someone said wasn't supposed to lock the bottom lock. And so to me, she has a note on the inside of the door, which I don't know why.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it said, do not lock the bottom lock. Well, the previous agent locked it. If you're gonna have a lock like that, you either better have a second key or have a sign in the front of the house too, but I would not even put yourself in that situation. You either better have a second backup key in your house where you can run over there and drop it off, or just get a second key for the bottom lock.
And here's something to add to that.
We left, we didn't see the property, we make an offer.
Yeah.
We didn't tell you the offer, that seller lost because of the.
And on the listing side of that, if you're the listing agent, like I have one right now, that there's no key for a certain lock, so just take a piece of tape.
Yeah.
Put it over it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
so
what I'm
simple.
thinking.
It is so simple. So on the listing side, this is on the buyer side that we're talking about, but that's just a point on the list side, so.
Yeah, and they drove 20 minutes out to the property.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, and I would say when you're making, if you're on the buyer side, and this is both for commercial and residential, is don't go too many days out, like, let's say you're showing on Saturday. Don't make all your appointments on Tuesday,
Yeah,
set them
pretty
on
cool.
Tuesday, because in this market, and
Mhm.
yes, we are going back into that. We're seeing multiple offers, we're seeing above asking and everything. It is going, a number of those properties may not be available by the weekend. So I would, let's say you're showing on Saturday, I wouldn't I wouldn't plan or make the appointments until 48 hours beforehand.
Or even Friday.
Yeah, or even Friday. Yeah, to do that. It's just, it'll make your life easier from, a scheduling, point of view. To do that.
Yeah, if you have to cancel the one in the middle and you plan your entire route, then you have to reschedule everything.
And on the listing side of that, there's always less on both sides. On the listing side of that, if you do receive offers and you have showings, let's say you get an offer you can't refuse on Friday. Send out all the people that are scheduled to view it and let them make the decision and reroute their smart route to show their clients. It's such a waste of time.
Or they can put another house in, that may have not made. the list
Yes,
yet,
exactly.
Something of that.
So be the agent that does the right thing.
Yeah, don't be, and this
Don't
is.
be the agent that does.
This is another thing that I've seen with agents, and I have to admit, I've been there. When, let's say you get an offer and you get a deal and it's a good deal, we all get, we don't want to go disappointing somebody, another agent. They're big boys and girls. I'm not saying to gloat over the fact that you've got a deal or you got 6 offers on it or something of that sort, but they know this is a business. Our objective as listing agents is to sell the property, to do that. The worst thing you can do is not communicate back out to these guys. And there's like, and they say, why the devil didn't you tell me? I would have, shown another house and said this if this one wasn't available. To do that, it's this is business. It's not a personal issue, but still there could be, courtesy as far as that stuff goes.
You want to be the agent that is courteous.
Yeah.
And if you accept an offer, you can say, hey, we accepted an offer, but we'd love the backup, so.
You still like to.
Still go show it if you'd like.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you never know.
people will still show up, probably. 'Cause,
Yeah, I'm not seeing, for at least in my world, I'm not seeing as many terminated contracts as I was seeing last year. I saw a lot when we were in the middle of the pandemic and everything was crazy. The terminated contracts rose up. I had 3 times where we put the backup in and we ended up getting it. There was a much higher death rate on first offers.
We just won a backup offer a couple weeks ago, and a client saw a condo last weekend, and the listing agent called me back and said they had 2 offers, but the financing fell through on those. So I'm still seeing that. I think it's still worth putting a backup offer in for sure, if they want.
Oh, yeah, no, there's no question about it. And, if you're listing it, don't be the agent. You gotta remember when you're listing it, you're trying to get that thing sold. So the best thing you can do for your client is to solicit backup offers.
Sure.
Of course.
To look at it. And the best thing that you can do for your buyer client is to very clearly explain the process. It's like, there's no financial risk for you doing this. But the thing is you basically, I guess for lack of a better word, you block out, any competition of it coming back onto the market. And I don't think agents do a good job of explaining that.
Yeah, and the list side of that is let's say you get 14 offers and 1 person wins and 13 lose. So when you send that email that you've blind copied everyone on that we've decided, to go with another offer, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. If you are interested in submitting a backup offer, we would love to hear from you. So
Yeah.
that is, right there, you have 13 people, you have a pretty captive audience, and with inventory so low right now, people are kind of like it.
And they might start with their pencil.
That's true.
Yeah,
Well,
very
you
much. so.
negotiate that,
Very
yeah.
much so. And this, and I'll let you dive into this in a second in terms of the presenting offers. In commercial world, when we present offers, we usually do LOI or letter of intent. And it's basically a bullet point. Is that regard form that exists in ACPR form, being able to do it. One of the things I learned during the pandemic rush, as I call it, is number one, when you send an offer, send everything with it. Don't piecemeal it. I won offers because it was a whole package coming through. I can't tell you, it drives me up the wall when agents send stuff and it's like, you're missing the financing contingency, or you're having to hunt this down or having to hunt that down. The other part of it is sort of like a cover letter in the email that's sent to them. Bullet point out the steps of the offer. What sale prices, what the due diligence is, what earnest money, closing attorney, things of that nature. It makes a difference. I know when we do it on the commercial side, it makes a letter of intent. It basically, it's like an engagement letter is what it is. You know, it's non-binding, but it's in, unless it says something different, to do that. And it's just agents, when they just sit piecemeal stuff to me, it makes it hard, you know.
They kind of go to the bottom of the stack. Your multiple
Yeah.
situations, you see which agent probably going to be easier to deal with, which agent kind of has their stuff together. And if you have two offers that are the exact same, but one's missing something, you're kind of like, okay, this person has it together, this person doesn't.
I was, with the letter of intent, and the reason we put it on just kind of, it's not like a full contract or anything, is because most of them are, attorney drafted documents. So nobody wants to spend a whole lot of money on drafting up a purchase and sale agreement if you can't agree on just the basic terms, due diligence, you know, earnest money, purchase price, just kind of the basic stuff. If we can't get past that, then there's no reason to go through a formal purchase and sale agreement. And that's the reason why we just do deal terms and just say, hey, look, is this something we can work with? If, you know, yes.
Yeah, not to say that when you get into the minutia of a 37-page contract, you know, or 72, I
It
mean.
can still fall apart.
Yeah, commercial contracts, I've seen them be, or just leases that are 72 pages long to do that. And, but at least you get through, you know, some parts of that, and then doing that. So what, for each of you, what has been, I'm gonna pull your memory a little bit here. What has been the most aggravating thing that co-op agents seem to do on a consistent basis that should be better?
Now answer your phone, pick up the phone. If you're working with an agent, pick up the phone. And if you can't answer the phone, send them a text that says, hey, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you within the hour. Answer your phone. We are in the people business. And if you're not communicating, I mean, when you're down to a wire on, you know, a timeline and an agent just blows you off and doesn't answer the phone, that can get very, very frustrating. So I think that is key in any transaction.
Why do you think that agents don't return phone calls? Is it fear of having, let's say, a fierce conversation? Is it fear of getting into an argument about something?
That's the other thing that I would bring up is we're not in the business of arguing with people. We're in the business of selling, of closing homes. So when you have a co-op agent, they're not your enemy. You want them to be your best friend. You can despise them inside, but your goal and their goal should ultimately not be to fight each other, but to bring the two parties together and get to Ashley's table, where we have candy and water. And a paycheck at the end of it. But I mean, that is your role. So, you know, the biggest thing is play nice in the sandbox with other co-op agents. There are some that they just, you know, it's like that video that you did was hilarious. It's like how people think we negotiate. Well, we're, you know, and really behind the scenes, we're like, geez, guys, I can't wait to meet you at the closing table. Yeah, that's the way it should be. We're not, I mean, we are fierce negotiators, but you negotiate in a nice way. You don't go about it, you go about things very tactfully. Talk through it and get to where you want to be, but you're not fighting them to try to get what you want. But there are some that are difficult and you'll find them. Sometimes you have to.
Yeah, and every
Take
so
it off
often
a little
you do,
bit, but
every so often you do have to get aggressive. I'm not the most aggressive on that kind of stuff, but I had one where they wanted to take $5,000 off the house. It was already severely discounted and to put in a French drain. And I was going like, I will go put the French drain in for $5,000. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. They said, well, they just Googled what it costs to put a French drain in. I said, where? In Manhattan? You know, this is in Flowery Branch. I mean, this is not gonna happen. I wanna make this deal happen, but you need to go back and talk.
yes,
You know, because that's just an unrealistic expectation to do that.
well, yeah.
You know, but I was honest with him, it's like, it just doesn't connect. I didn't say to him like, you're a freaking idiot, you know, you're just trying to rob my client, you know, anything you
Yes.
ask for. But Cravens, you were gonna say something.
Well, I was just gonna say, we're going back to your original question about, why agents don't return phone calls, and it really just depends where you are in the transaction, right? I mean, if you think you have one agent that asks the same thing over and over again, you're just not gonna return the call. Or if it's, how you leave a voicemail, has a lot to do with whether you're gonna get your call back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm looking at some space and, I noticed you have something, yeah, just give me a call. No, I'll return it back. Again, if they call me, I've got a client that's done this, they got 3 locations, they need 2,000 square feet, that's a real big.
Danny, I gotta call him back.
Yeah, and it all depends on, each situation is a little bit different, when, especially on the commercial side, especially if you don't have an agent if a end user is calling you on the space, the reason we're terrible about not returning those calls is it's not a deal. It's just a waste of time. I hate to say it, but it is a complete waste of time. Most of them just are kicking tires and things like that. I got other things to do.
And I would say in residential, maybe commercial, maybe a little bit different, but even in residential, I mean, if I get a tire kicker, I'll turn tire kickers into buyers, I'll turn tire kickers into sellers. So if I get a call and someone is expressing any kind of interest in real estate, whether it's just, hey, I saw, one of your properties, or hey, I'm thinking about, I'm calling. Because I know how to talk to them so that I can turn it into a deal instead of a, tire kicker.
I think a lot of agents don't pick up their phone, because, I mean, I get spam in that like every day, so I think they just assume it's a spam call, so it's selling insurance, whatever, so that's probably why they don't pick up the call, but there's no excuse for not returning the voicemail.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of my biggest gripes is just the communication, just echo what you said, just agents that, especially when you're under contract and they don't pick up your calls, they don't return your last day of due diligence, you're trying to hammer out a deal and you can get a hold of the agent. Yeah, it's common courtesy.
Well, here's one thing that I do, and I just found that it helped me. I'm very ADD, jump all over the place. If I am in a, we reach an agreement, I'm in a deal with someone, I want to know when that person's calling. So I might put in, Sandy agent for buyers on, 513 Main Street. So that if that's my listing, I know when Sandy calls, like, I wouldn't recognize your number, but I put her in.
Yeah.
The minute I realized that this was real. And so the bad part about that is you end up with 3,000 agents in your phone. So you have so many contacts in your phone and you don't want to delete them because, they end up with
I'm sure. Names.
I'll put Sandy and the address representing buyer. There are not millions, there are bunches of those in my phone. And that makes it a little bit easier because then to pick up the phone. If it says potential spam, not picking that up.
Yeah, same.
But if it's just a number, it might be a potential client. They may have picked up your name off of your sign, your number. They may have picked it up off of, your website, whatever.
So let's talk about listings and stuff like that, because pretty much everyone in this room, I think, does both listings and buyers. What are things that you see if you're a buyer's agent and you're going out to show or researching stuff that you see, and this has to do with the agent, so don't be that agent, that are challenges in both the listing that you see on FMLS and when you physically go to look at the house?
I'll start.
Thank you.
I experienced this 2 weeks ago. My sister worked with my sister-in-law to buy a house, and she said to me this was in her dock, and like the grass was so thick and green and lush. I said, this is Photoshop. We showed up to the house. It was so terrible. It was weeds, dead grass, the backyard, and the photos had all this fresh green grass, flat backyard. It was like a steep drop off. I was like, God, did they just like steal this photo from people? And like, it is our job to make the listing look.
And there was no disclaimer on it?
Yeah.
This is what it could be.
Yeah. Envision the possibility.
It's for, there, I was gonna say, that's the representation.
Yeah, you cannot.
There's one as a day.
It's our job.
You cannot do that.
Yeah.
You can get sued. You cannot post.
Yeah, so.
It's our job to make the listing.
Yeah, you
as
cannot do
possible.
that. You can.
But Actually, you can Photoshop grass a little bit, but it's like
Yeah.
total research. 180.
You can Photoshop in a blue sky if you want to.
Yeah.
You know,
Versus the
because
gray.
it looks better, it makes the house look
But
better.
that's not the house.
Right. Exactly.
You're not buying the sky.
I'm not buying the sky.
Exactly.
This is stuff right over the house that needs to be gray. You know? So-
Matt's point, and the people thought that. And.
All right, you have one.
Yeah. Listen, we thought they did some. Good.
It is, I went to a class and it was about Photoshop and someone had removed the electricity line in front of the house.
Oh, that's
In the
bad.
photo, and a big $25,000 lawsuit. Because the people didn't see the house before they bought it. They bought the house.
Sight unseen.
Yeah, sight unseen, and then after they got to the house, this big power line coming out of the front of the house, and they sued, and they got $25,000. I mean, it could have been worse than that, but.
No, so, and now the agent, their agent, that, because.
The agent removed the,
Yeah,
Right, the listing agent moved that,
Right.
but the buyer's agent didn't go view that property before she let it make an offer.
They should have at least.
I don't know if they.
That.
Agent, right?
Buyer's agent is at fault.
Well, they didn't bring up whether she bought it through a buyer's agent or not.
Yeah.
So she could have bought it through the agent.
So here's the lesson. So
If
if you are,
she may not
if you
have had
have a buyer who is buying something sight unseen, I cannot tell you, I have clients coming from California, they're actually here now, so. I cannot tell you how many times I have driven from Johns Creek to Canton and back, which is an hour each way for me. To preview a property before we would even consider making an offer on it and FaceTime them through it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
don't, and you know, that story sounds great and all, but I just have to wonder. Where the validity is in that, because the buyer's agent, you know, yeah, but I mean, so someone, the buyer's agent should have been, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I was bringing mail like in 21, because I think I had 5 or 6 closings that where the buyer hadn't seen the house until 24 hours before the closing, and I'm like, you know, and I FaceTimed them. I mean, one of them, I added it up, I had spent, I think, 2 hours on FaceTime and going through the whole. So, you know, there were power lines in, they were gonna know it's there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you just get really nervous about it. We don't see it quite as much now. It is a bit nerve wracking.
It is.
Yeah, what you do that.
I had clients come from Norway and had them in the house after the closing. They didn't see it, but I did.
Yeah.
I would also say,
I've only sold one property during FaceTime, but when I show the property, if there's a burn in the carpet. I'm
Yeah,
like, Here,
yeah.
there's a burn in the carpet.
You step on it, hey, carpet looks great.
Yeah. That's what a commercial broker would do.
I would say that if you're a listing agent and you're writing a description of the property. I see a lot of them that will put new roof, new carpet, new HVAC, and you show up, the roof is like 7 years old. And I think it's a little bit misleading. So
It's not even newer, 7 years old.
Not
I
70.
think you can put newer if it's 30-year shingles, but
I consider 2 years the limitation on being able to say even newer.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
also, maybe 3 at most, but yeah.
And you know, people can cross-reference the seller's disclosure, but if you put things are new and they show up, everyone gets disappointed. So I don't want to trick buyers into expecting to do everything. That kind of hit me recently on a listing. My seller told me it was a new HVAC. I didn't verify, I put it in the listing description. And then, you know, it turned out it wasn't new, it was 7 years old. What it's been kind of a big issue, so. When your sellers tell you something is new, you can verify it. Yeah.
I think having a good photographer too, because the thing that really drives me.
But not too good.
Yeah. Depends on what kind of.
Yeah, the thing that really drives me is you show up to a house and, you know, you look at it on MLS and it looks great, the rooms are big, And you walk in and, like your shoulders are touching one wall and in the room and, your other shoulder touching the other. So be a little realistic in the photographs. We want them to look nice. We want it to showcase at its best. But let it showcase at its best, not.
Yeah, and don't be the agent that isn't honest with your clients in how the house should look. We've got one coming up next week that I didn't say this to them, but literally, I have never seen so many wedding photographs in my life. It could have been David's private, in the place. And between what was sitting on, let's say, a great front or on a coffee table or something, to where, well, I just got them taking ones off the tables because I didn't want 42 nails in the walls. I let them do that, but you don't want to looking like an old middle studio grew up, in the house. And a lot of agents, I don't think, are honest when they walk through the house and say, you need to clean the counters off. Because we all know is the more open the counters are, the bigger the kitchen looks. If a carpet looks like crap, tell them it doesn't, don't tell them it looks like crap. But, tell them it doesn't, you need to get some cleaning done, in here. And because we all know when we're sitting on the other side of the table and being a buyer's agent, we're gonna make a comment. There was 9,000 wedding photographs, in the house. Things of that sort. And it ends up, whether you think you're making a joke or not, it ends up being disparaging in the buyer's mind. One thing that I've seen buyer's agents do is that they go through a house and their job is to show the house, but also be honest in if there is a major issue of, let's say, a bad roof, for example, you can sometimes see a bad roof. Or if you think that when it comes to the day for them to resell, it's gonna be a challenge to resell. I will say to them, I'm not just looking at the entry into the house, I'm looking at the exit on the house. Okay, when that day comes. But what I would say is don't be the guy that nitpicks the house so bad that you're looking at everything in such a negative light, because this is a major thing for them. They want to get hyped up about it, to do that. So you just want to be realistically honest. in that.
Tactful honesty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Don't ever say the word problem. Say there's a challenge.
Right.
Challenge is much easier to swallow.
Yeah.
Do that. And always don't say you, say we. When we're coming to the time to sell the house, this may be a challenge. Versus you're gonna have a big problem selling this house, when it comes to 5
What I found is we'll have better success and we will achieve the highest sales price if we do this.
Can I go to Mott's and get the boots? If saying stuff like that, it's just,
A lot.
but it does make.
It isn't how you say it.
Yeah, and when you go into, have y'all had conversations with another agent, to the point where when you see their name on the phone and you're going, oh crap, I gotta talk to this person, you don't want to be known as that person. You want to come in a teamwork perspective, to make something happen. Going to war just doesn't get you anywhere, and it ruins your street cred, in doing that. I know that especially in the commercial world, is that there's some brokers that deal with both men and women that I talk to and I'm going, oh boy, I gotta deal with that person. It's gonna be 5 phone calls to get them to return the phone call and such as that. But you just don't, you don't want to go, when you're a buyer's agent, you want to go guns blazing into that. Have y'all experienced that with somebody yet?
You don't want to be Meryl Streep, the Devil Wears Prada, she steps off the elevator, and everybody's like, you don't want to be that, you don't want to be known as that.
So how many of y'all have had another agent say to us like, well, I have 432 years of experience in real estate and I've never run across this before. So I'm going to tell you exactly what we're going to do. Has that ever happened to you guys? I've a number of times. And they try to override you, they try to make you feel like an idiot and such like, don't let them faze you. And don't say that to somebody else.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So I love that, because, you know, the good comeback to that is, if they say, do you know who I am, or do you know how many properties I've sold? A good comeback to that is, are you asking me because you actually don't know? Or do you think you know?
Want me to pull it up on Zillow for you?
Yeah. I label agents I have really bad experiences with on my phone, I'll label them as asshole, whatever. So if they call me,
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest doing that.
I label them as, when I see their name, I'll.
So you know who they are.
I just want everybody the same, whether or not you meet them for the first time or you met them for the second time. I mean, it's not whether somebody's bigger than you. I mean, I can be more experienced than another agent and working in a deal. And I feel a duty as another agent, if they don't know, to help them along. I've had an agent say to me, this is my first deal before.
Yeah, when it's that scenario, the
Yeah.
best thing you can do for yourself is say, you know what, we're gonna get through this.
Yeah.
You know, ask me questions such as that.
Right.
The worst thing you can do is have another agent and start talking. You know, how with your, if those of you who have kids, you have a tendency to talk at your kids. You know, go clean your room, go do this, go do, it's just a natural learning thing that occurs. There's a huge difference between talking at a person and talking to a person.
Right.
Now, we all talk to our dogs. We don't talk at our dogs. You know, obviously our children are at a lower species level than our
Yeah.
dogs.
So we noticed that one, but madness.
So, but think about how you're talking at it, because the worst thing an agent can do to me, independent of what kind of transaction is, if I start feeling they're talking at me. Like, well, this is what you need to be doing, or this is how we do it, you know, instead of saying in different ways.
Yeah.
It just makes a huge difference.
Yes, it does.
And I'm telling you, you don't want to be called asshole on somebody for their own ID, you know, there are a couple.
The best thing is to work together and get along and get to the end of the deal and not try to outsmart each other. And it's not about that. It's trying to get to the end of the deal.
Now, the goal is to protect your client, whether you're by yourself, protect your client and get them to the
Right.
closing table in the right way.
Exactly.
Now, having said that, though, if the other agent, and y'all may disagree with me, if the other agent screws up on something on the contract and it works your client's advantage, you've got to make that moral call whether to let them know or not. The classic example is when you have like a, the CAD, you know, community association.
Yes.
Associations for exhibit,
Yeah.
and they don't fill in the transfer fee,
Always,
you know.
always read that.
You know, to make sure of that. I mean, one time I went back to the other agent, I was buyer's agent, I went back to the other agent 3 times and said, guys, you haven't filled this in, you know, it's $900. They never did it, you know, and they paid the $900.
Yeah.
You know, to do that. But, you know, work together, but always work in your client's best interest from a moral point of view.
You can tell them, but you can't force them to do it. Yeah, I agree 100%. You tell them, you point it out.
So speaking of such things, because we're coming in the last 10, 12 minutes of this. When you're from binding to closing,
Mhm.
what are some challenges that you've seen with some agents during that period? From a logistics issue, from a contractual issue, from a communications issue, and from an ethics issue?
I'll start. So this is not a challenge, something I'd like to do, just courtesy of engagement, but I'm under contract with a buyer. Right after the inspection, I leave, I'll call them and say, hey, Dave, this is Matt, I'm just calling you, just let the inspection, as a courtesy, I'm gonna give you kind of a brief summary of the inspection. Nothing major came up, the only big thing was X, just want to let you know about it, we're probably gonna put together an amendment, set that over today or tomorrow, but this way. Because after every inspection, the seller calls and you, hey, like, how did it go? Yeah, I don't know, I've never heard from the buyer's agent, so I make that call to say, hey, this is so you can share information with your seller. And, you know, let them know, okay, like, it sounds pretty promising, he said there was nothing major coming up. Or if you find something major, hey, we kind of found a big problem, the roof is leaking in 8 areas, there's a lot of damaged shingles, and there's a big structural problem. You know, we'll have to figure this out, but I'm not sure if this is gonna stick or not, you know, and that way they can go back to someone and say, hey, they found these big issues, we need to deal with it, either with this file or with the next one. So I always like to do that.
And
Communication, yeah,
Yeah.
let them know what's going on.
communication, when you're the listing agent, if you, whether the house is vacant, if the house is vacant, it's one thing, and in the contract, we can, as a buyer, as buyer's agent, you have the right to enter the property, to inspect, whatever. So as a listing agent, it's frustrating when people can't get their ducks in a row and they want to, when you have someone living in the house, they may have kids, whatever, and they want to go in and out of the house 5 or 6 times. It's like, yeah, you can have the inspection and yes, you can come and you can look at the house, but do you really need to come 3 times in 1 week? So just try to do as much as you can in short visits if the house is occupied, because you're uprooting people out of their home. Every time you and your buyer want to traipse back through the house. So
Yeah.
try to,
So do the termite, do the inspection, do the appraisal all on the same day.
well, that is, and more so than that is like, oh, well, Aunt Sally's in town and I really want to show
Oh,
Aunt
right.
Sally the house. Okay, well, Aunt Sally can come. And then 2 days later, oh, Uncle, Jack is here.
What did they measure?
Yeah, I want to take
Yeah,
measurements.
that's
Well, could you have done that when you were doing that Sally? I mean, so that kind of thing gets very frustrating as a listing agent when the house is occupied. So just if you're representing a buyer, be conscious of that.
So when you're in that binding period and you're going through, let's say the ATAC, period of that, what are some things that you've seen challenges are from other agents?
I would say on the listing side, well, as a buyer's agent, we have to be coaching our buyers what kind of market we're in, right? We're in a major seller's market right now. So if you're lucky enough to have the house under contract, you should be coaching your buyers. Due diligence is for attacking big items, not for tiny ticky-tack items. And the worst thing is with the listing agent, and you get a attack from the buyer agent this long, and it's stupid stuff like door doesn't latch, fix before closing. GFCI in the kitchen is not GFCI, must replace it. It's like, I'm not gonna hire someone to do all these sticky, like, send me either a lump of closing costs to address all this, or make 80% of this go away and give me 3 bold items that are big items. Because otherwise I'm gonna run you off and go to the next one.
And don't copy and paste out an inspection report. Do not copy and paste out an inspection report. If you want something and you're gonna be specific and it is some people are just nitpicking, and don't say door doesn't latch. You went on to say must be fixed. Door doesn't latch. Thanks for letting me know. You didn't ask me to fix it, so thanks for letting me know. So just on ATAC, you get some really bad ones. A lot of agents just don't know what they're supposed to put in it.
Let's go to our resident expert. What's the best way to write items in the ATAC?
You just write what you want fixed and who you want to fix it. So like, I don't know, licensed electrician to add outlet in bathroom, or whatever it is, or seller to have licensed electrician add outlet in bathroom. So that way, seller's responsibility, if there's a specific party, you've named them, then what you want done. Because if you just put what's in the actual inspection report, Allison's right, they never have an action. Or the worst thing I see is seller to address the following, because same thing, it's like, yeah, I totally see the crack in the foundation. I've addressed it. I agree, there's a crack.
There it is.
So you want to.
Yeah, I always think of seller to repair,
Yes.
Or
Right,
seller
right.
to hire contractor repair.
Yeah.
Sometimes that seller can do caulk and toilet.
You don't always want
Yeah, that is really
Actually, how do you feel about saying licensed contractor too? So a lot of times, my husband can fix anything. So if someone comes and says licensed contractor, I'm not doing it. Brad can do it. So how does that work if someone absolutely says?
You haven't fixed the things in your living.
No, in my own house. I'm saying, if it were my house, they would have said. I'm selling my house and Sandy's buying it and they say licensed contractor to replace light switch and dining room. You're not paying a licensed contractor.
Well, if you sign the amendment, you do have to pay the license contractor.
But you could turn it.
But so two things. First, I would say seller to have licensed contractor, because if you just say licensed contractor to XYZ, you still haven't addressed who's paying for it. So I think seller to have
Right.
is important. But also think about whether you actually need that person to have a license. Because keep in mind, the lender could say, I need to see the license for all those people. And some agents are just in the habit of putting licensed contractor on literally everything.
Right.
And that's not always the most efficient thing to do, because if you fix the your laundry room needs to get painted. Most of us would just paint the laundry room,
Right.
right? But if then the lender said, David's like, I'm not doing that. Some of us would paint the laundry room. And if we're in that category, people who paint the laundry room, now you're gonna hold up the whole sale because the lender is asking for the license.
Yes.
So that's,
So
don't
my
always
point
put it.
is, don't put on every single thing. If it's electrical, I might put that.
Yeah.
But on stupid stuff, don't put that it has to be done by a licensed contractor.
Yeah, just think through whether you really need a
What's
contractor to do it and what it means to be licensed, because sometimes there aren't even licenses. I don't even think you can be a licensed painter, right?
Inspector, but.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, and to Matt's point is when you're having that conversation with your buyer and you're creating the ATAC, what I tell them is okay, my tendency is to look at the big rocks. If the HVAC system is blown or at the end of its life, or something with the roof, not a hinge or the bracket around one of the downspouts.
Yeah.
I'll send, somebody out to fix that kind of stuff, because mentally, when the seller sees it and it's been, well, I don't say cantankerous negotiation, but then you got some money off on the deal, doing it, they're just gonna put up a wall, right when it occurs. So the best thing that you can do for yourself is to go ahead and have that, say, let's look at what the bigger items.
Yes.
Are.
And if you're representing the seller in that situation, you're going to look at your seller and you're gonna say, you know what, if you want to be cantankerous, as it uses, over them asking you to do these few simple things, these same things are gonna come up on the
Yeah.
next inspection. So let's just go ahead and do it. And then if things don't go through with this one, we're prepared for the next one. But also, make your sellers realize you're getting top dollar right now. You're not contributing to closing costs. You got a great thing going here. Don't be a butt over $2,500 or $5,000 or $50. I mean, I had someone, I represent the buyer. We were over asking, like 5,000 over ask. It was a cash deal. It was a clear contract. We asked for $250 to replace something. And they said no. So I was that agent at that point. So I got on the phone with the listing agent and I said, okay, $250. I said, if these people hadn't been challenging to begin with, I would pay for it. But in this situation, I'm not going to, because this isn't asking too much. So what we're going to do is another listing in the same community just went on the market yesterday. So I'm just gonna walk over there right now and say, and I'm just gonna walk over and look at it. I've already called my client. She's gonna come and meet us and look at it too. What do you think?
Or $250.
I think you got it.
At that point, I wish we'd asked for 5,000. They couldn't agree to it quick enough.
Yeah, I mean,
I was very nice about it, but
and what I would say to your clients is always my favorite phrase is, do you want to win the battle or do you want to win the war? Because 6 months from now, you're not gonna think about that $250.
Yes.
Or $1,000. I almost had somebody kill one off on $1,000, the French drain people. On that, they were having a fit about it, and I said, listen, this is the reality. They're closing in 10 days. You've got a house you gotta close on, new construction in Anderson, South Carolina. You're walking away with $85,000 in your pocket to begin with. Is this going to make the difference versus us having to go back on the market in a neighborhood that isn't selling very fast and you missing your closing date in Anderson?
Yeah.
What's the big picture?
Yeah, as a buyer's agent, you have to kind of read in the situation, that the house that your buyers are buying, the sellers need to sell the house by the next house. They're not gonna let you walk away over $1,000. They need you to close this house by the next house. They're not gonna let you walk away. So they play hardball.
Isn't it amazing how many different personality types there are in people? It really would be good if we could all clone and just be happy, but your life experiences, each of our life experiences make us sensitized to what that is. And we have to be aware of that. You can have one client who is very sensitive to mold issues. You know, even though there's no way there's mold in that house, or another one that's sensitized to electrical issues. Things of that nature, and you do have to, it's easy to go back to another agent and say, you're cracking the head, you're whatever, is that, bold, it is not the bold law, it's the Y4CT2 law that say seek to understand. One of the best things I ever did for myself is when the dots aren't connecting, you're not understanding why somebody's saying it, just say, can you, so I understand better, can you explain to me the thought process behind that? That's a very neutral comment, instead of saying, can you explain to me why your client's an idiot and asking for this? That's what you're thinking, but you don't say that. And literally, if you notice, there's one thread through this whole conversation, we finished up on top of the hour. There's one word that has been a thread through this whole discussion today. You know what it is?
Communication, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
it's straight out communication. Don't ever assume, if you know what it's gonna do, to you, don't be a jerk, because it's gonna come on the street that you are one, and you're not gonna be. I have seen agents, be turned away because of their street credit, from deals. That they don't want to deal with this. If this is a long game for you, you gotta play it out. You gotta do it correctly. I'm not saying to be a wuss and let yourself get rolled over. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. But, what's the old saying, you get more with honey than.
Yeah, more bees than honey.
Yeah, or a good bottle of vodka, that could do it too.
Be tactful in what you're saying, and, like, say, first understand is very true.
Yeah.
Be tactful and
That's the one that screws us up more than anything, because we get it in emotion. And this is the last thing I'm gonna say. When you get a phone call or voicemail that says blah, 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 sounds like the teacher on Charlie Brown, talking at you. Don't immediately respond. Give it at least 90 minutes, walk outside for a while before you respond. The worst thing that happens to you is knee-jerk reaction to do
my
that.
mother always said, once it leaves your lips, you can't take it back.
Mhm.
And just, I'm surprised
Or your
about
butt.
that. I think
Yeah.
it makes me-
And sometimes you talk out of that also.
Yeah,
So,
but that's true.
I do want to piggyback on that. This is probably my biggest struggle. Is when you're having a struggle with the other agent. And like, you go to whatever side you're on, you're like, okay, we like this, the other side says no. And so, you feel frustrated and you go back to your client, you're like, these jackass sellers, they're not giving.
Oh,
us
yeah.
$100.
No.
You gotta be careful, because you start pinning your buyer and your sellers against the other side, and it could just be the other agent. It's kind of being stubborn, it's not that nice, and so then all of a sudden, your client's like, we didn't want to buy this house anymore, like, so sometimes it can really challenge you when you're in a really hairy transaction.
You gotta remember, always take the mindset that you're a mid-east peace hostage negotiator.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to get the house out of being kidnapped. To the other side.
It's very tough sometimes.
Avoid telling your side what the other side says. I mean,
Yeah.
you can,
It's very hard.
it is, sometimes it's very hard.
It is.
Don't do that.
Okay, so has this been helpful?
Yeah.
Question. Have an overpriced listing. And, my seller's, deceased daughter, mom had gotten some flyer talking about houses worth whatever we'll sell it for this amount, or we'll buy it way over what the market is, almost 6 figures over at this point. Anything.
Do you have comps in the neighborhood?
I sent that. We had a conversation. I talked about carrying costs.
Okay, did you send it, or did you sit down with them at a kitchen table and have a
Well,
conversation?
Zoom, she's out of state.
Okay.
When you talk about kidnapping house, I'm like, somebody come, take it.
What about, have you done the research on the flyer, whatever it was that she received, and do the research on that? Call them and find out what their actual fees and what she's actually going to be paying out of pocket for them to buy that house at that price?
There's no actual proof of this flyer.
Okay, so,
So this was the number that they were talking about.
So I can show you the flyer.
I would,
I did, but she can't find me.
okay.
So
Well,
who
if
knows?
she can't find it, then she can't call and sell it for her. What I would do, you know, I might even go as far as to go to one of the companies that actually do the buyouts and call them and say, hey.
I've got somebody, I got somebody's name and number I can give you
Yeah, I was
right
gonna
now.
say, call.
And Hannah will be happy to tell you what they would be willing to buy the house for.
Dana?
Yeah, I'll give it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would.
Could do that, and they were like 80K below what we're listed at, which is.
Yeah,
Where
well,
they
did
did
you share, and you shared that with them?
So they're just being unreasonable.
They are
They're
being
just-
unreasonable.
They're not
Okay,
making
that's some.
Trying to get as much money as possible to do some of the things.
Then what you have to explain to them is that they're actually losing money the longer
We
it's
went through the
there.
carrying cost and the mortgage and the interest and the rent that she's paying. Like,
Well, no one's
I
even gonna come see it.
No,
had to zero. So I'm the only person who comes to look at it.
There you go. That's your answer right there.
Yes, you do. Let's say in future ones, if you've got a seller who you know right off the bat is gonna be unreasonable, you can put a special stip in your engagement agreement that says, like, okay, fine, you wanna list it for this price, we've talked about it, and I think it's way too high. So after it sits for X amount of days, you automatically have authority to reduce the price.
So we introduced it to that, but I didn't include more than one step of that. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Gotcha. So you're gonna probably relax. It's only been 3 weeks.
No, but that's, so we haven't had.
Closest for-
That's a slower market.
it is a slower market.
It is, but when you have.
When you're hunting those first,
Yeah.
overpriced, it's a real.
And the zero showings is your, that's your.
You can always say eventually we'll be right.
Or eventually, you know, or eventually, maybe 10 years from now.
Home that sells for like 70 below.
So what price?
Yeah.
What price?
So we started at $395, we're at $385 now. A home is under contract for $350.
Oh. And it's not, the comp is.
It's very good, it's like 6 square feet smaller.
Geez.
I'll give you Hannah's.
Okay.
and-
I just thought maybe there was something else I missed.
No, sounds like that.
Can you give out that number? Oh, everybody send it. Yeah.
show me the address.
For sure. I got it.
Yeah, I have spite.
Oh, my. We done?
Yeah.
Let it talk. That's it.
I'll email you.
It does what we need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very nice. It's great, it's fun.
Good.
But it's.
You didn't get. I literally just did that 2 days ago.
Yes.
I sent it to the ALC, it was like, I know I'm teaching this class, but this is not what you're supposed to be doing.
No, that could be like, slang, like. Oh, that's not, if this was someone named Bush, yeah.
Somebody find this posting it for me, all that actually says Butch Wilkerson, I said, yeah, oh yeah, I know. You're fine.
I guarantee you, he's been called that.
I was gonna say. I bet he gets it all the time, but you're right.
100%. Debbie David's been sending, because I think,
It sounds like it, like.
I've been probably recognizing that worse David's been having to hard key it in, and then now, yeah.
You're so welcome.
Some guy was calling me to turn out his shipment and one of these sites not getting there. And I sent him a text, I said, I just checked, it's sitting on your desk.
I think I've been on there all the time. Oh, wait.
What did he say?
Yeah, this day.
What?
Pat?
I think I'm gonna go.
What's wrong? No, it's gone. No, it's there.
Oh, my God.